The cafe on Clement Street had a particular way of holding light. By 8 in the morning, when the fog had not yet fully surrendered to the sun, the windows along the west wall caught the first gold of the day and scattered it in long, lazy rectangles across the floor. The wood there was old and worn smooth, the color of buckwheat honey, and the light seemed to sink into it rather than bounce off it, giving the whole room a warmth that felt earned rather than arranged. Ethan Cole arrived at 7:52, as he did every Monday. He took the table at the far corner, the one with the slightly uneven leg that he had learned to compensate for by angling his coffee cup half an inch to the left. He carried a weathered canvas messenger bag, the kind that had been good quality once and had aged into something better. Inside, a laptop, a battered notebook with a rubber band around it, 3 mechanical pencils, and a small drawing Lily had pressed into his hand that morning before he dropped her at camp. It was a drawing of the two of them standing in front of a tall building, and above the building she had written, in her careful 6-year-old hand, "Us and the sky." He ordered a black coffee and a plain croissant. He opened the laptop. He had been sitting quietly for 20 minutes, doing the particular kind of work that requires looking occasionally out the window, when the door opened and the temperature of the room changed. Not literally. But Ethan noticed it the way you notice a current shift when you are swimming in open water, not a dramatic change. Just a slight alteration, in pressure. In direction. He looked up without meaning to. She stood just inside the doorway, still in the motion of removing her sunglasses, and she scanned the room with the practiced efficiency of someone accustomed to assessing spaces in seconds. Dark blazer, clean lines, dark hair pulled back in a way that managed to be both severe and effortless, the kind of put-together that did not happen by accident. Her gaze moved from table to table, measuring, calculating, and then it landed on the empty chair across from Ethan, the only truly unoccupied seat in the increasingly crowded cafe. She walked toward him without hesitation. That was the first thing he noticed about her. She did not drift or meander. She moved in straight lines. She stopped at the edge of his table. "Can I sit with you?" Her voice was low, precise, the kind of voice that was used to being heard the first time. Ethan looked up fully. He registered her face, the sharp, clean architecture of it, the slight tension around her eyes that suggested she had been awake longer than she should have, and he felt something strange happen in his chest. Not attraction, though she was striking. Something else. Something closer to the sensation of hearing a piece of music you are certain you have heard before but cannot place. "Of course," he said. And then, because he had learned years ago that silence offered more than filler, he said nothing else. She sat. She ordered an Americano when the server came. She pulled out her own laptop, positioned it at exactly 90 degrees to the table edge, and began to work. For a while, neither of them spoke, and the quiet between them was not uncomfortable. It was the quiet of two people who did not need to perform their presence, which was, Ethan thought, unusual. Most strangers felt compelled to explain themselves. She did not. After perhaps 15 minutes, she glanced up and caught him looking at the window. Not at her, not at anything, just the particular unfocused gaze of someone thinking through a problem, and she said, without particular inflection, "Do you come here often, or is that a terrible thing to ask?" He almost smiled. "Every Monday." "You? First time." She looked at her coffee. "I have a meeting on Sacramento. I was early. It's a good place to be early in." She nodded once, seeming to find this sufficient. She returned to her screen. He returned to his. But something had snagged in the back of his mind, catching like a thread on a nail. Her voice, the particular cadence of it, the slight pause she put before certain words, as if she were selecting them with care. He had heard that quality somewhere before, not in a person, but in a description, in a story told to him 6 years ago by a social worker with tired eyes and a manila folder on her lap. The birth mother had a careful way of speaking, the woman had said, like she was measuring every word before she let it out. Ethan looked at his screen. He did not look at the woman across from him. He breathed. He told himself it was nothing. The world was full of careful speakers. He picked up his coffee. He went back to work, but the thread stayed caught. Lily had started drawing her in February. It began, innocuously enough, a figure in purple crayon. Vague and round-limbed, the way all of Lily's figures were at 5 years old, standing in front of something tall and rectangular that might have been a building, or a door, or a bookshelf. Ethan had hung it on the refrigerator next to the drawing of their cat, Spencer, and the drawing of Ethan himself as a robot for reasons Lily had not fully explained. But the drawings kept coming. By March, the figure had grown more specific. Dark hair, a blazer. Lily had asked Ethan how to make a collar look right, and he had shown her, and she had practiced on 6 sheets of paper before she was satisfied. By April, the figure was standing in front of a building with large windows, floor to ceiling. And Lily had drawn tiny people inside the windows, very small, like ants behind glass. "Who is this?" Ethan had asked one evening, sitting at the kitchen table with a drawing in his hand while Lily ate yogurt and swung her legs. "I don't know," Lily had said, in the unconcerned way children answer questions they consider to have obvious answers. "You don't know her name?" "No." She ate a spoonful of yogurt. "But she has your eyes." "She has my eyes?" "Not exactly your eyes." Lily had tilted her head, thinking. Eyes like yours would look if they were sad. Ethan had looked at the drawing for a long time. He had said, "That's very specific for someone you don't know." "I see her when I'm almost asleep," Lily had said simply. "She's not scary. She just looks like she lost something." He had put the drawing with the others. He had started a folder. By June, the June of the second Monday of summer, there were 11 drawings, each one slightly more detailed. The figure's face had resolved itself gradually.